Hi everyone, welcome to my living room. I have been trying to film outside for about a week now because it's just so gorgeous here in the UK at the moment. We've had a really amazing November weather-wise. It's been really cold. It's like 1 degree Celsius outside and it's really sunny, not a cloud in the sky, and everything's really crisp. And I live in a really beautiful part of the country. I live in Glastonbury, so it's absolutely gorgeous. So I've been trying to film this video, Mercury going into retrograde, tomorrow on the 2nd of December, and I've been trying to film the big one, which is Saturn in Capricorn, but it just hasn't worked. It's either been too windy and then the microphone doesn't work, or I've had tractors appear and start to cut things down, and it's not been working, which is kind of a nice segue to move into Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is the planet of communication and transportation. And every time it goes into retrograde, those two things become more stifled and more challenging and tricky and treacherous and difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, Mercury goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. It varies, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. So you can't really just put your whole life on hold every time Mercury goes in retrograde, because here, for instance, it lasts 3 weeks from the 2nd of December until the 22nd of December, 2017. If you add that up, if you have 4 in a year, that's almost 3 to 4 months. So, we can't really afford to just not do anything for 4 months a year. Most people can't anyway. So you kind of have to deal with Mercury retrograde. And some of them are really positive because they open new ways of doing things. Like I remember the last retrograde, it hit me really strongly and I decided to do all my videos just really differently. I think I did a video sitting here for the first time, and it just kind of, something occurred to me. It's like, why don't you go sit over there today instead of where you're usually at? And it can be as simple as that, just these little ideas. Why don't you change things up? Why don't you just adjust things? So the Mercury retrograde in itself, if you're not familiar with the concept, let me just explain what the thing in itself is. So Mercury is a personal planet. It's the planet that's nearest to us. So in the solar system, you've got the sun, and then you've got all these planets around, and Pluto is at the very end, the most outer planet. Mercury is the nearest to the sun. And Mercury is this satellite. It rules communication. And when it goes retrograde, it appears to be going backwards. It's not actually, in reverse and driving backwards. It just looks like it's going back, because the astrology is based on our position. It's geocentric. It's putting the world at the center of the astrology and then looking at the things that are going around us. So it's not, it's not what it's actually like, with the sun being the center of the universe and then all the planets moving around. So the way I always explain it is, if you're on the highway and you're going 70 miles an hour, if someone overtakes you and that car is in the lane next to you, there's going to be a point where the two of you seem to be totally still and suspended in midair. And you can kind of look in their windows and wave to the kids, and they seem to be stationary, totally like not moving at all. And then if the other car is going quicker, then it keeps moving forward. And from that car's perspective, you seem to be going backwards, but you're not. You're still doing 70 miles an hour. It's just that they're doing 75 or 80. So that's the same thing with Mercury retrograde. From our perspective of planet Earth, it just seems to be going away because we're moving quicker. So because of that sense of Mercury going further away from us, communication and transportation becomes more difficult, and that's the same thing each time. So I take the Mercury retrograde as starting, so the beginning of the Mercury retrograde, when the planet actually stations, when you got those two cars in that suspension mode. That's when I feel the Mercury retrograde really starts, because it comes to a halt, and that you kind of notice. And then it goes backwards within a day or a couple of hours or something, and it stays in retrograde until the 22nd, then it stations again. It comes to a stop, so it stops going, or it stops appearing to go backwards, and it looks like it's going forward again. So each one of them are pretty much, the mechanics of it is the same, but obviously because Mercury is in a different sign each time, it affects us differently. So, a Mercury in Aries going retrograde is going to be really different than a Mercury in Virgo or in Sagittarius, like this one going retrograde. And the reason for that is the planet is the energy in itself. The sign that it's in is how that energy is expressed. And the house is in is what area of your life that is expressed. So planet is the energy, the sign it's in is how it expresses that energy, and then the house is how you are affected. So for instance, your financial area of your life, or family life, or relationships, or career, or travel. So have a look at your monthly horoscope for your sign. So Taurus, Gemini, Aries, Sagittarius, Aquarius, whatever your sun sign is. So whenever you read your horoscope in the magazine, look at the forecast for that, because in that forecast I will tell you in what house Mercury goes retrograde. So you'll be able to use this information in terms of what the Mercury retrograde means, and then you'll be able to apply it to a specific area of your life for your sign of the zodiac. Make sense? Okay. So Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's the centaur, and it's really concerned with exploration, travel, and adventure. And that's both in an intellectual sense and a physical sense. So in an intellectual sense, it's concerned with things like theology, metaphysics, reaching higher realms of knowledge, learning about things in general, teaching. Religion as well can be very associated with Sagittarius. And then it's the physical side of things. So adventurers and explorers and import-export agents and people who work in sales and promoters, anything to do with sports. Those are all the kind of, anything to do with movement really, that's all associated with Sagittarius, because if you look at the actual sign, it's a centaur, so it's this horseman. And his natural default setting is gallop. It's always moving forward, concerns itself with how do I progress in life, what new things can I kind of gather. You know, life is meant to be lived, it's meant to be enjoyed. I want to savor every second of it. I would really want to have this experience of life. That's why Sagittarius is often so optimistic and such an optimistic sign, because it has all of these desires to kind of learn and explore. It's also ruled by the lucky planet Jupiter, which is all about growth and expansion and bringing good fortune into your life. And it just so happens that on planet Earth, if you want to bring good fortune into your life, you have to actually leave your house and go and do something. You have to put the energy in, you have to kind of provide the fire, and then you can experience the kind of things that you're looking for. So, Mercury stations, so it appears to just come to a dead standstill at 7:34 in the morning, and that's based on UK time. So don't get too hung up about the times. You know, Mercury goes retrograde on the 2nd, 3rd-ish. That's all you need to know, really. Because depending on your time zone, it's going to vary. And it's not like, you know, at 7:34, you snap your fingers and it's like, okay, now my phone doesn't work anymore. It's not like that. It's like a gradual, energetic shift. So Mercury retrograding in Sagittarius, anything to do with travel, particularly, because Mercury rules travel, Sagittarius is associated with travel, that's going to really be more difficult. So make sure that, you know, if you're flying, it's not dangerous, it's just a headache. It just means that there can be miscommunication. So instead of getting your suitcase to Durban, it might end up in Dubai, or the plane may be delayed, or, you know, you forget to put the tags on your luggage and then whatever, they can't place it. It's little annoying things that have to do with transportation. Buses having a flat tire, the plane having to be de-iced, delays, hotels not being the way you expected them to be. And, I mean, there could be a million scenarios, anything to do with travel and communication. The communication side particularly, because it's in Sagittarius, isn't going to be so much with, it's not going to be so problematic with other people. That would be a problem if we had kind of Mercury in Gemini or in Virgo, because that's all about listening and speaking and communicating and building rapport, and Libra even. But In Sagittarius, it's more concerned with kind of abstract communication, higher realms of knowledge, spiritual communication. So this Mercury retrograde is going to hit the vicars and the missionaries quite hard. They may question what they're actually saying to people. People who speak about spiritual things will question what they're doing, and because the great thing about Mercury is because it brings uncertainty into your life. And that's the great thing, you know. And the bad thing about certainty and certain religions that say this is the way it is and nothing else exists is that it robs you of that uncertainty. And the great thing about life is not knowing what it's all about, being uncertain, trying to figure it out yourself by having an experience of the universe, of the world, of this life that you're living, and figuring it out for yourself. That's why I always think it's such a shame when someone becomes fanatical about some system or some way of looking at the world, because it's just one ideology, it's just one worldview. And by looking at things from several different perspectives, you just have such a richer experience of the world and of life. Some people may disagree with that and say, you know, the certainty of my faith is what gets me through life. So I really need that, and I don't like to question what things are about. I did that at 15 and never again, you know? So anyone who is connected with spirituality, and if you're watching this video, if you're interested in astrology, then you're someone who connects with these abstract higher concepts, because astrology in itself is a very kind of spiritual divination system, which is based on the energy of the planets and how that affects us here on planet Earth. So microcosm, macrocosm, you know, what happens down here, as below, so above, as above, so below, same thing. So the gist is that what's happening in the sky has an influence on what's going on for us internally in our own little solar systems, which is our bodies and our auras and our spiritual beings. And so it's a spiritual kind of concept anyway. So you may question what you feel about certain spiritual beliefs that you've got. You may get new insights, because remember, Mercury will close certain doorways and ways of thinking, and you'll just hit a wall, and then you have to find a way around it and see things differently. So it could be that your meditation practice, which you do every day and which is super helpful and which allows you to connect, doesn't work so well during Mercury retrograde. Or if you've been on a search and you've been trying to find a way to connect with something higher than yourself, you've tried yoga and you've tried transcendental meditation, but it hasn't worked for you, it may just be that during this Mercury retrograde you get the idea, and the best ideas are usually very simple. They come in like, go see the Krishnas this afternoon. It's really simple. Usually, higher self-guidance is, for me anyway, it's very matter-of-fact, it's very calm and just there, and it's just a very simple statement where there's no room for confusion. That may just be me, because I can overcomplicate things in my head, but I get these messages very simply. So if you get a simple message in terms of, why don't you try acupuncture for your back pain instead of, you know, the traditional way you've been dealing with it, or why don't you try Zen meditation instead of your usual practice, then go with that. Don't reject it. Try it out. Be a little bit open-minded and say, okay, maybe I'll get something out of this. Maybe it'll be helpful in terms of getting me to connect to these higher realms. So it's about change, and it's about walking through different doorways and seeing which ones work for you and which ones don't. So yeah, those are the two main things. I think there might be minor disruptions to kind of travel, so make sure you've got your tickets and your passport and all of that stuff. And then also on the spiritual level, there's real potential for you to hit a wall, but then there's also the potential to really discover something new and totally fresh and original, which you wouldn't have discovered if your existing practice continued to work the way it always has, because you wouldn't have been forced to make any changes. Now also, when the planet stations, it's at 29 degrees, so it comes to a stop at 29 degrees. And whenever anything is at 0, 1, or 29 degrees in the chart, it's really stronger than usual because each house is 30 degrees. So when it's at 1 degree or 29 degrees, it's at that critical point, and that's when the energy is really, really strong, because it's kind of like, this is my last hurrah kind of thing before I move on into something else. So Mercury being at 29 degrees, especially powerful in terms of communication with other people. 29 degrees in itself also converts to 11, to a 9 being 11, and 11 is the master number of service. So you may get some ideas about how you can communicate differently to be more generous and to be more of a support to other people, or you may find out things about your own spirituality, your own spiritual practice, which is more useful and effective in helping out others rather than just serving you. So this is a Mercury retrograde that may complicate things for you personally, but that's going to have a positive impact on how you're able to support others. So the work that you do here is really important in terms of what you can then contribute to the lives of other people as a result. So that's this Mercury retrograde. I'm not sure when the next one is. It'll be in the spring 2018 probably. I'll have to have a look, but just be aware of that each Mercury retrograde, the mechanics of it are really the same. It's just the communication planet forces you to look at things differently. But look at the sign it's in to kind of get an idea of how this is going to affect you. Because, you know, if it was in Taurus, then we would be dealing with changes and barriers and roads closed in terms of our financial life and the control we have over our careers. So that's important to look at. And then check the monthlies, because it will tell you exactly what house this is in what area of your life this is going to affect you. And short of having a personal reading, that's as specific as you can make this. Okay, so speaking of readings, if you would like a personal reading with me, then please get in touch with me via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. And what I do in my personal readings is I draw up your birth chart. So I take your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. That gives me a blueprint of your soul. It shows me why you've come into this lifetime, what your soul mission is, what your talents are when it comes to work, your strengths and weaknesses, and also predictive astrology and tarot shows me what's coming up for you in future in all areas of your life. So spirituality, personal development, finances, communication, family life, romance, health, travel, institutions, career, hopes and dreams, spirituality, really anything that you may consider and have a question on, we can look at. So the website is gregoryscott.com. Click on the readings tab to order your reading. Please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll speak to you soon.